Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. I'm not going to lie, I found this video quite a hard one to get to and do just because it just kind of feels like a fait accompli. Daniel Dubois versus Razvan Cojanu. Even though Cojanu has some pedigree behind him, he fought for a world title in 2017. You know, he's faced some good opponents, but he's lost all the fights. Dubois is 9-0 heading into this fight, but I gotta say, where is the hype? Where is the buzz? Daniel Dubois is one of the top prospects in all of heavyweight boxing, and everyone is just kind of, you know, from what I can see, there's no real hype or buzz, or no one's really talking about this fight. Just sort of seems to be a bit like, meh, you know, he's coming up this weekend or Friday night in the UK. It is what it is, you know, on to the next one after that. In actuality, this is Daniel Dubois, you know, probably after Kevin Johnson, his best, you know, step-up performance in his career so far. So he's 9-0, this is his 10th fight. Perhaps some of this stems from the fact that Dubois was already meant to have fought Cojanu. That was cancelled. Dubois got the flu or something, had to pull out. Nathan Gorman stepped in when his opponent, Alex Leapai, pulled out and fought Cojanu instead. And that led to a pretty one-sided and, you know, relatively dominant performance by Gorman, but it wasn't, you know, exactly, you know, filled with lots of highlights. He looked pretty decent and slick for a number of rounds before gassing, and there was questions about the gas tank and power. So from this fight with Dubois and Cojanu, we get to have a comparison between Dubois and Gorman and the way that they dealt with Cojanu, because let's face it, Razvan Cojanu, whatever he's saying, he's going to lose this fight. Daniel Dubois is going to go in there, do his thing, and he's going to either stop him or be taken the distance. Razvan Cojanu has shown that he can be durable. He can sort of go into his shell and, you know, take some punishment and go the rounds. He did that against Joseph Parker. He only really came out of his shell for about one round in that fight. Even though Razvan Cojanu has said, you know, what he's going to do to Daniel Dubois, and that, you know, Dubois' inexperience and youth is, you know, going to be his downfall in this fight, it really is just hype and bluster to help talk up this fight. But, you know, did he really need to bother? Because no one was really talking about this fight, and I found it really hard to get up and do this video. It's one of these ones that I've, you know, put off for days and days and days, just because other more, you know, because when I look at what I do every day, you know, what comes up in the news, that sort of stuff, it's based on the stuff that I'm really interested in, and, you know, stuff that is breaking and other bits and pieces and other things that I know I need to get to that have good storylines and angles, I'll do. Other things I'll just let fall by the wayside because I'm like, oh, well, that's old. And there's been a lot of recycled news lately. A lot of it. And some of the stuff with the storyline for this fight, it's all recycled news. Some of the stuff with Cojanu, the way he was talking about what he was going to do to Dubois, but also the Nathan Gorman and Daniel Dubois stuff that has bubbled up in recent days, talking about they're going to have a fight. And it's not for the first time. Frank Warren's been trying to sort of stoke that fire for quite a while now. And I've done at least 2 or 3 different videos in the past year on this. And really, we're sort of back to square one, talking about what's going to happen down the line. And that's, you know, I've seen a number of other videos, all that sort of stuff, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Couldn't do it. I was just like, I've been there, done that, got the postcard. And I know Frank Warren is talking about building these guys into a fight, but I sort of look at the situation right now and go, is that going to sell out a stadium? Probably not. And if it is a stadium, it's going to be a very small one. And there's a real problem here, and I mentioned at the start, there just seemed to be no real energy and hype and buzz about, you know, this upcoming fight for Daniel Dubois, and it's a problem. It really is. I just went and watched the press conference and almost got put to sleep. It was so dull and dour, and, you know, Daniel Dubois has been a pro for a couple of years now. Sure, he's only 21, and, you know, there is some room for improvement, but he should have been improving by now. Honestly, he's got the personality of a baked potato. It is honestly so dry, it's not funny. Nice kid, but, you know, boxing is an entertainment sport, and people like to be entertained, and, you know, a part of that is boxers selling themselves outside of the ring as well. he just can't seem to do that, and Frank Warren can only do so much for him. Even Razvan Cojanu has been rather muted in the second build-up for this fight with Dubois, because obviously they had that first build-up, the end of last year. And a lot of the stuff on, social media is a way to try sell yourself and promote yourself. Some of it is really, it just kind of feels like going through the motions for Daniel Dubois. There's no spark there. It's very vanilla sort of stuff in general. Doesn't really sort of seem to, I don't know, I just kind of, I love watching this guy fight, especially when he's knocking guys out, but albeit most of these have been overmatched opponents, and I like the potential and what he could do in the division, but it just, something isn't clicking right now, and he doesn't seem to be growing the profile and the fan base that even by, his 10th fight, which this one with Cojanu is, that he should actually have. And if anything, the sort of buzz around him has regressed a bit, and the Kevin Johnson fight did have something to do with that. Judging them by that performance against Kevin Johnson, the knives were out from some fans sort of saying, look, he's a hype job. Couldn't stop him, couldn't knock him out. Joshua took care of him in 2 or 3 rounds. Didn't really seem to wobble Johnson, didn't seem to do much to him. And I think it's a little unfair to sort of say that, he can't do anything in the division because he's only 21. He looks like he is getting better. But there's a real problem with his image and profile. He's just too circumspect. It is actually an issue because people aren't getting to know this guy, who he is and who he really is. Maybe he is just camera shy, or maybe he is in real life just a bit quiet and a bit reserved and a bit awkward, because that's certainly what's coming across on camera. And yeah, it's a situation they actually have to sort of look to remedy, because, the whole do your fist in the ring thing, that there is something to be said for that, but also outside of the ring, you've got to grease the wheel a little bit with fans, and that's not really happening to the extent that it should. But going to some of this build-up, so I will talk about this, and I was interested in the press conference from Cojanu because, he's always a little bit entertaining, he can sometimes say a few controversial things, but he's back to his routine of sort of saying that he's actually prepared properly for this fight now, whereas, he sort of put down poor preparations for other camps. And this is the thing, Razvan Cojanu is always full of excuses after a loss. And bear in mind, this guy hasn't had a win for over 2 years now. He lost to Joseph Parker, Luis Ortiz, and then Nathan Gorman. The last time he won, the year was 2016. Record of 16-5. We have to kind of look at the situation and go, sure, Razvan Cojanu was a bit lucky to sort of stumble into that title shot versus Parker. He was Parker's sparring partner. Hughie Fury pulls out. Cojanu gets a title shot. No other circumstance would he ever have worked himself into a mandatory position. He was only ever a fringe contender at best, way on the fringe there. He just happened to be at the end of the WBO top 15 at that point in time, and Parker was able to select him as an opponent when Hughie Fury pulled out. So right place, right time, and in that fight, as we saw against Nathan Gorman, just didn't do enough. And he looks good sometimes when he sort of throws some punches and puts some combinations together, but 5 seconds around, or 10 seconds around, it just doesn't cut it. You can't just, throw your hands for 5 or 10 seconds, then shell up and be defensive for the rest of the round. And he seemed to be a bit shocked when that Gorman decision, that lopsided Gorman, when the cards were read out, like he'd been robbed. Similar with the Parker one, he was demanding a rematch after that. And Parker won all but, I think on some of the judges' scorecards, he'd won all the rounds, but I think I gave him 1 round in that fight where he showed some ambition in the 10th round against Parker. But we know he is durable. If he doesn't get caught and if he is defensively responsible, Razvan Cojanu can go some rounds. And one of the things for this fight, with the comparison with Nathan Gorman, it would actually be to Dubois' detriment if this does go the distance, because I think a lot of fans would go, well, actually, Luis Ortiz got him out of there in a couple of rounds. He's been knocked out a few times. We know Gorman potentially doesn't have the power that some other heavyweights do, but Dubois is a guy that is expected to knock out a guy like Cojanu, even though he can play spoiler and, be a tricky customer in there. So, it's kind of a a no-win situation for Dubois in some respects, because he's expected to beat this guy and handily right from the outset. And if he doesn't take care of him in under about half a dozen rounds, I think a number of people will be asking a question about, well, how far is Daniel Dubois really in his progress? How good really is he? And it is a bit of an open question. But this whole thing about Nathan Gorman, because you see on screen here, so, they've been trying to play up this angle, Frank Warren, his promotional company, Royal Albert Hall appointment, Nathan Gorman's going to be here, and this sort of details some of this, Gorman some quotes and other bits and pieces. Yeah, we've sort of been there, done that, got the postcard. They're really trying to sort of heat up this rivalry between the two. Even Gorman himself is relatively circumspect. Both of these guys seem like top men, but they don't seem to have that outside of the ring, personality or brashness, or there's a bit of X factor that, especially Dubois seems to lack on that personality front. And I know that's a horrible thing to say, but, do you get what I'm saying, though? There's something about the way that he's presenting himself to the world that just sort of screams, I don't want to be here, and I'm begrudgingly here, and I'll do my job in the ring, but no more. And to me, that's sort of, with boxing as a business, it is an entertainment sport after all. He's going to find it hard to sort of get along some of these casuals. If he can't, casual fans drive boxing, let's not face it. I mean, anyone who's listening to this channel, or majority of people who are listening to this video, and you've got as far as this in the video, you're probably most likely a hardcore fan. The casual fan is either not searching for Daniel Dubois on YouTube, has no idea who Daniel Dubois is, just because, the air's gone out of the balloon a little bit for him on the hype front. It just seems he was starting to build a bit of momentum, but it just seems to have stalled and stopped. And it wasn't just the Kevin Johnson fight. He just wasn't fighting enough in 2018. And Frank Warren did actually say at the press conference he wants to get him out 5 times in 2019. And I think he will just have to, 1, for the development, but 2, to build his profile if they're ever to get to, a Nathan Gorman fight. And they've been trying to put out a number of things, and it's been picked up by different boxing websites and a number of articles, and they've been trying to work quite hard to build a little bit of, press and buzz for this fight. But it's sort of, to some extent has fallen on deaf ears, and it's a bit of a shame, because this is a decent test at this point of Dubois' career for him. But, there seems to be a number of hurdles, almost like self-imposed hurdles, with the personality and trying to sell himself, and just, he needs to be better, dealing with, the public, being on camera, trying to, show some personality, smile. Honestly, it was almost like, I want to put that, press conference on when I'm about to go to bed to send me off to sleep, because that's how dry it was. It was a hard watch. Anyway, what do you make of this fight? Razvan Cojanu, I think he's going to get knocked out, but, it wouldn't surprise me if it went the distance either. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.